Namo Aditafa, good morning. Thank you for joining me for a daily practice check-in. Listen, listen, listen. This beautiful sound calls us back to our true home. The first mindfulness training. Aware of the suffering caused by the destruction of life, I vow to cultivate compassion and learn ways to protect the lives of people, animals, plants, and minerals. I am determined not to kill, not to let others kill, and not to condone any act of killing in the world, in my thinking or in my way of life. For Dharma readings, we've been reading a book by the nuns of Amaravati called The Body, Dhamma Reflections on Aging, Illness, and Death. And we're in a Dhamma talk by Ajahn Candasiri called Growing Old Gracefully. Well-being. It was a particularly interesting question because the theme I had chosen for the workshop was well-being, maintaining well-being. I've come to see that well-being is a necessary foundation for the practice. It is said that you can't teach people when they're hungry. You have to feed them first. There has to be a reasonable degree of well-being to really contemplate Dhamma. Otherwise, the bodily and mental stress become too much of a distraction. Mindfulness. Whenever I'm asked a question, rather than thinking and struggling to find a suitable response, I tend to go quiet and see what arises. So when the person asked the question about aging, I turned my attention inwards, listened, and felt what was behind her question. I realized that the only response I could give was to say mindfulness, that the way to prepare for and manage the process of growing old is to cultivate mindfulness, a quality of presence and a sense of ease and well-being. I've noticed that when my mind is a bit forgetful, or if I have some physical discomfort or pain, my habitual reaction is a tensing up, a feeling of anxiety or panic. Oh dear, what's happening here? There's a kind of mental freezing, but that actually makes things worse. It doesn't help me, and it doesn't help the people I'm in contact with, because they become tense, anxious, and worried as well. However, if I can just relax and acknowledge what's happening, I don't add to the difficulty I might be experiencing. I'm not adding to the concern that other people may feel. It's as though I'm taking responsibility for what is happening to myself moment by moment, acknowledging, okay, this is how it is right now. Because of the aging process, we may make a mistake, forget to do something, or get something wrong. But if we can be mindful, present, and aware of what's happened, and just acknowledge what's happened, there's a chance to correct the mistake, to make amends. For example, those of you who work in the monastery kitchen meet many people who visit at weekends. They tell you their names and a little bit about themselves, but then, when you meet them 3 weeks or a month later, you may not remember their name or what it was they told you about themselves. This is because you have met so many people. It's not easy to remember so many names or to put names to faces. I find that in those situations, I have a number of choices. I can try bluffing, pretending that I can remember the person, but usually what works best is just to admit, I really can't remember having met you before. Then they may tell me a little bit about themselves, and that jogs my memory. Sometimes I can remember them, but I have no idea what their name is or what they do. So then I have to say, well, I can remember you, but I'm afraid I can't remember what your name is. I find that actually people are very forgiving if I'm straight with them and acknowledge, I can't remember who you are. Most people can accept that. More than our remembering everything about them, what they seem to respond to is the quality of our presence. I remember realizing many years ago, when I was in conversation with somebody, that what was most important for me in relation to that person was not to spend a lot of time in conversation with them, or that I wanted them to do anything in particular for me. What I was looking for was simply a quality of presence. When one is able to fully acknowledge someone's presence, whatever may be needed can happen in just a few seconds. There's the sense that somebody is right there, present and attending to you. There's a sense of connection. This was some of what I said to the lady in Canada who asked about growing old and forgetfulness. I encouraged her to just try to make a habit of mindfulness, a habit of presence, so that even when she forgot something or made a mistake, she could simply acknowledge that. Forgetfulness and mistakes needn't be a big deal, and if people are very upset, just staying present can be the most helpful response to their concern or irritation. One of the beauties of living in an international community is that we are in contact with people from many backgrounds, with different expectations, skills, and gifts, so there are often misunderstandings. This gives us the chance to develop great patience, kindness, and acceptance of one another. May all beings be well. May all beings be happy. May all beings be peaceful. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you for joining me this morning.